Well, good morning, all my gritty, glitter, badger, savage peeps crew. Happy Monday morning quickie. It is October 27th. It's the last Monday of October. Holy bejesus. I can't believe it. But I'm just going to get right into it this week and, get us started off right. And I'm like, really, last week I told you I got a new chair. I'm really vibing this chair because I can like sit in it and like, it's like cross my legs and one like just, nice casual conversation with each other. Like we're just sitting in the same room and we are conversing. So let's have a real one-on-one, if you will. The thing that you've been dodging, right? Maybe it's the email that you keep leaving unread, or perhaps it's the conversation that you keep pushing until later, the workout that you promise that you're going to start, quote unquote, tomorrow, or the dream that you orbit, like a plane that is just circling, waiting to land, but it, just never does. And, that's that thing, right? That, you know, it's not the detour, that's the route that is to be taken. There's this Zen proverb that says that the obstacle is the path. And it's not just, this beautiful poetic saying, it actually is very practical and very true. And the precise place that you're resisting is the exact place that you were meant to be in, that you are meant to train in, that you are meant to go, right? And we love to imagine growth as a perfectly paved road that's just beautiful and there's clean shoulders along the road, and it's these perpetually beautiful sunny skies and this lovely soft gentle breeze, and just the perfect soundtrack that crescendos right when we hit our stride, right? It's like that song that is your jam and it's like comes at the perfect moment. But you know becoming rarely shows up with those confetti cannons, right? And that whole it shows up and it looks like that email that you're scared to send, the conversation that maybe leaves your throat feeling tight, right? And when it does, your nervous system throws up a polite little nope, not going to do it, to keep you safe, right? Because that's the default system. Safety to your brain equals predictability, and nothing messes with predictability like doing the hard honest thing. And that's what I want to touch about going into this week, right? And let's stop fantasizing about the day that the wall disappears, and start learning now how to lean into it and go over it, right? No sugarcoating, no waiting for the motivation to put on a cape. It's just we've got to go through the obstacle, right? And because the obstacle isn't blocking your path, that is your path. So, why do we avoid the thing that we need? Okay, so we are this beautifully, exquisitely designed person, right? And we are designed for survival. Your body scans for threat before your morning coffee even cools. Like seriously, emotional risk is awkwardness, rejection. It's the possibility of failure, right? Thinking about that, like you're thinking about your day and like automatically you're starting to think about, what's not going to work, what this isn't going to go well, or whatever it is, right? And this lights up the same circuitry as physical danger. And that's why you procrastinate. That's why I procrastinate. Not because we're weak willed, but because your system is prioritizing what it thinks will keep you alive, right? Scrolling feels safer than starting. Overthinking feels safer than acting. And, waiting feels safer than making the call. But muscles don't grow without confidence. Businesses don't do well without putting the work in. Courage never needed to exist until fear walked into the room, right? And wisdom arrives, on the back end of wrestling with hard questions. And, avoiding the obstacle, it doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you small. And small is not why we're here. It's not who we were meant to be, right? And here's the shift. The obstacle isn't punishment. Like, I think that is just something that, we challenges and adversity and obstacles and tough times are always, these things to be avoided. It's programming. It's the session on your life's whiteboard that trains the exact capacity you say that you want. Resilience, clarity, boundaries, stamina, self-trust, right? And the reps you dodge are the reps that would make you stronger. So naming what stands in the way is one way to start moving forward with, right? So start where you are, not where you think, quote unquote, your elite version of you should be, right? It's like, it's okay to have that visualization, but start where you're at, right? Grab a notebook, your phone, the back of a receipt from the console. I've done that before. Anything flat and honest will do. And write down the obstacle currently staring you down, right? Don't curate, don't explain, just brain dump the raw list. Maybe it's, I need to have a hard conversation with my partner and I'm nervous I'll say it wrong, or I keep putting off the first step of my side hustle because starting feels like exposure. I've been skipping workouts because I feel behind and I don't want to face the gap. Or, maybe it's, I'm scared for the job I actually want because what if I'm not qualified enough, right? And again, these are just examples. This is your brain dump list, that raw list, that's going to be unique to you, right? And then circle one, not three, not two, one. And, this isn't like, it's not the whole life makeover, right? One. So that circled item is the path for this week. And again, keep it boring. I know, sometimes it's like we talk about, wanting things to be interesting and fun so that we do it. But this is, simple. Just keep it simple, right? Keep it real, because when you choose one obstacle, you give your system a focal point so it can stop scanning the whole horizon of danger, and then it can start training on purpose. And I'm talking about life training, gym training, whatever, right? So most of us fail not because the obstacle is impossible, but because we keep trying to lift it in one dramatic deadlift, if you will. And I'm, metaphorically speaking, you don't PR the first day you touch a bar. You progress. And walls are just bricks in formation, and bricks are movable. So translate the obstacle into micro steps, micro drips, right? Small enough that your nervous system doesn't, interpret them as a threat and want to implode, right? But big enough that they move you forward. And if the obstacle is a hard conversation, your bricks might be write what you actually want to say without editing, and then choose a calm time, and then, lead with honesty and not blame, and ask for a specific outcome. you know um Agree on a follow-up time to check in. Maybe the conversation is, you just want to have the conversation but you don't want feedback, or maybe you want feedback but you don't want it right away, whatever, right? Make that known. And this, if the obstacle is, I keep skipping workouts, then your bricks might be, set out the clothes the night before, choose 10 minutes minimum, right? Press play on a timer, mark the sticky note, and go on with your day. 10 minutes done is stronger than 60 minutes imagined. And that is so key. And when you break the wall into those bricks, you're not shrinking the dream, you're designing the path, right? And then suddenly the monster becomes a puzzle. And, the puzzles have these edges and pieces, and the pieces can then be placed and put together. So, this is where it gets fun, right? Because you get to reframe each obstacle as a gym session, not the gym of punishment, but the gym of skill. So, put the obstacle on your mental whiteboard like a training day. So, is it a tough conversation? Okay, that's a communication workout, right? It would be like you warm up with a few deep breaths and clarity notes, right? And then the main lift is the first sentence that you've been avoiding. And then your accessory work is listening, is the listening that you do without interrupting. And then your cool down is a recap and gratitude. Maybe it's a scary career move, right? That's a courage workout. So your warm up would be listing proofs of competence. And then the main lift is submitting the application. And then your accessory work is telling a friend for accountability. And then cool down by logging that you showed up, right? Or perhaps it's a messy project that you haven't started, but you keep thinking about, right? So this is a resilience workout. So your warm up would be 5 minutes of project triage, right? Whatever that looks like for that specific project. Then your main lift is the least glamorous first action, right? And then accessory work, well, that's 25 minutes of a focus block. And then a cool down by writing the next micro step before you close the laptop or your notebook or whatever it is, right? And I love to do this. I love training reframes because most of my life centers around fitness and sport, right? And it also helps to remove the moral drama. And you're not asking, am I good enough? You're asking, which capacity am I building today? And that question is empowering because it keeps you in motion. You don't lock up, right? So tracking the wins is just, it's tracking wins that you keep forgetting, right? This is important. If you don't track progress, your brain defaults to nothing is happening, and that's a lie. It just is. And, it's a demoralizing one, if you will. And progress isn't just about the finish line. It's the footprint trail that, shows you along the way. Like, so if you log your wins, even if they're tiny and they're messy and imperfect, you sent the email, that's a rep, right? Put your shoes on and you walked for 10 minutes, that's a rep. And, maybe you spoke up in a meeting, even though your voice shook, that's still a rep, and reps compound. It doesn't matter. I like low tech methods because it's tactile. I'm not somebody to write things down on my phone. I am a pen to paper kind of gal. Sticky notes on your desk, sticky notes on my laptop. I like a good check mark. I'm not going to lie. I like a list. I like to write things down and check them off. Or maybe it's like a pocket notebook. I do have little notebooks in my purse that I carry with me, right? You only use it to record, those reps for your future use so that you can see, right? And it's simple and it's strangely satisfying to see the evidence stack. And when you capture a win, you train your identity, right? And you become the person who faces obstacles, not perfectly, but reliably and consistently, right? So now the mirror that you might be avoiding, and most obstacles aren't actually the thing. The workout isn't necessarily the obstacle. The story, I'm not fit enough yet, is. That hard conversation isn't really the obstacle. The fear of rejection is, or the new project isn't really the obstacle. Perfectionism, it's whispering, it's lullaby, don't start until it's flawless. You don't want to look like a failure, right? That's what it's really about when you peel away the layers, right? But here's the good news that's baked inside the discomfort. If the obstacle is you, then the solution is also you. I mean, seriously, how freaking cool is that, right? You're not waiting on permission. You don't need to wait for somebody else, or a new algorithm or a perfect plan, right? You're practicing a new pattern in real time. You can change patterns faster than you can change circumstances, and that's a freaking dope power to have. So, the next time that you feel that flinch, don't bully yourself. It's so important. Just get curious, energetic curiosity. Ask yourself, what am I protecting? What prediction is my brain making? And, is it predicting this will be unbearable? give your body new data, one honest sentence, one 10-minute move, one application submitted, one brick relocated. Your nervous system updates based on experience. So give it experiences that prove you're safe to act. So I want you to think back to the hardest season, right? Maybe it was a heartbreak or a job loss. Perhaps it was an injury or, the failure that made you want to hide and you didn't ask for it. And pain isn't noble. But if you're honest, that season forged something in you that comfort couldn't. Discernment, scrape down priorities, the realization that boundaries aren't meant, they're humane. Growth lives in the hard stuff and the friction polishes the edges. And that doesn't mean that every obstacle must be this big, grandiose, dramatic thing. Sometimes your biggest transformation is just the simple, quiet choice to stop ruminating and make the call. Or, sometimes it's going to bed on time. Seriously, like that simple, not complicated. Sometimes it's moving your body for 10 minutes when the plan said 60 and the day said, nice try. But, this isn't about heroics. It's about fidelity on the path, fidelity to that path. So here's my challenge that I'm inviting you into this Monday to take into the rest of the week and, every day thereafter. And it's going to be distilled and doable, right? KISS, keep it simple, stupid. You're going to list obstacles, right? Pick one and you're going to break it into micro steps. And then you're going to reframe it as training and then track your wins, right? And I talked about that earlier, the examples of what I meant by training, right? So that's it. Simple. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's always going to be super easy, but it's simple, it's repeatable, and repeatable is how the nervous system and the identities shift. And then as you work, I want you to remember that resistance isn't evidence that you're off track, right? It's just evidence that you're on the exact address where growth lives. And if you bump into the wall, well, that's okay. You found the quote unquote gym. And then a few reminders to keep you steady. Ritual beats willpower. Language steers physiology. Community multiplies courage. Good community. And grace isn't a loophole, it's fuel. So now let's get into our 4 hot badger tips. Again, they are actionable as fuck. So first, choose one wall and move one brick daily. So each morning, pick a single obstacle and you name the tiniest first brick, the tiniest first action that you can move in under 10 minutes, right? And do it before you check your feed, before you check your emails. And, brick ideas could be write the first sentence of the hard message or fill out one line of an application or set 10-minute timer and start the warm-up, right? Or outline 3 bullet points for the conversation. Moving one brick a day beats staring at the wall all week. 2, reframe to train. So name the capacity, right? Stop asking, why is this so hard? And instead ask, what am I training right now? Label today's session. Is it communication? Is it courage? Is it resilience? Or is it focus? And then treat the obstacle like a workout. You got the warm up, which is your breath and clarity. The main lift is the uncomfortable action. The accessories are the small supportive tasks, and the cool down, log the win, and then take a moment for gratitude, right? Training frames cut the drama and it keeps you moving. Regulate, then act. So this would be breath and body is your green light, right? So when you feel the flinch, don't white knuckle, right? Take 3 rounds of inhale 4, exhale 6, right? Drop the shoulders, feel your feet, right? On the ground, you unclench your jaw, relax your breath, right? And then do the tiny action. And then when you're pairing that nervous system downshifts with micro steps, it teaches your body that action is safe, not scary, and you'll stop defaulting to delay, right? And then 4 is log the rep receipts, right? Identity by evidence. So keep a visible log win. Oh my God. Keep a visible win log. It's a sticky note grid. Maybe it's a notebook by the coffee maker, or a notes app. Even though I encourage you to use books, a notes app titled Badger Reps. And then each rep gets a little tick mark, and in one sentence, like sent the email, walk 12 minutes, ask for clarity, right? And then review it weekly, because the point isn't perfectionism. It's about pattern. It's about consistency, right? Because your brain, first of all, loves patterns. Your brain loves a good checklist, and your brain believes what you can show it. So show it that you're the one who walks the path, right? So now, shoulder to the wall, breathe steady. Let's start moving today's brick. Don't just go through life, grow through life.